My name is Lauren, and I'm a 26-year-old graphic designer living in Austin, Texas. I love sharing snippets of my life on social media, especially Snapchat. It was a fun way to stay connected with friends and document my day-to-day experiences. But one day, everything changed, and what started as harmless fun turned into a nightmare I couldn't escape. It all began a few months ago when I started noticing the same username popping up in my Snapchat story views. At first, I didn't think much of it. The account had no post, just a random cityscape for a profile picture. The username was something strange and cryptic, definitely not someone I recognized. I checked my friends list, but he wasn't there. I shrugged it off, assuming it was just a glitch or someone who had added me by mistake. But as the days went by, the account kept showing up. Every time I posted a story, there he was, watching. It made me uneasy. I tried blocking him, but within minutes a new account appeared with a similar username, lurking in the shadows of my Snapchat views. I felt like I was being stalked, and the thought of it sent chills down my spine. One day, I decided to post a picture of my morning coffee from my favorite cafe. I thought it would be a fun way to share a little piece of my day. But later, when I checked my messages, I found one from the mysterious user. It read, "Nice coffee, but try the caramel latte next time." Panic set in. How did he know I was at that cafe? My heart raced as I stared at the screen, trying to make sense of it all. I felt exposed and vulnerable. I immediately deleted the app, thinking that would solve the problem. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't be that simple. Weeks passed, and I tried to go on with my life, but the unease lingered. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. One afternoon, while I was leaving work, I found a note on my car windshield. My breath caught in my throat as I read the words scrawled on the paper. "Missed you." I looked around, scanning the parking lot for anyone suspicious, but there was no one in sight. I felt a wave of dread wash over me. I knew I had to do something. I decided to move cities, hoping that changing my environment would help me escape this nightmare once and for all. I packed up my things and relocated to a small town a few hours away. I thought I could finally breathe easy, that I could leave all of this behind. I settled into my new apartment and tried to start fresh, but the fear of being followed haunted me. I avoided social media altogether, convinced that the man could somehow find me again. One night, a few weeks after moving, I decided to treat myself to dinner at a local restaurant. It was a cozy place with dim lighting and friendly staff. As I sat at the bar, sipping my drink, I felt a sense of normalcy returning. But that feeling didn't last long. As I glanced around the restaurant, my heart dropped when I spotted a familiar figure in the corner. It was a man who looked strikingly similar to the one from my Snapchat. I couldn't see his face clearly, but something about the way he was staring at me sent a chill down my spine. I quickly turned away, trying to convince myself I was overreacting. But when I left the restaurant, I felt eyes on me. I hurried to my car, fumbling with my keys as I glanced back towards the entrance. My heart raced as I saw the man standing there, watching me. I jumped into my car, locked the doors, and drove away as fast as I could. I didn't stop until I got home, where I locked every door and turned off all the lights. I sat in silence, trying to calm my racing heart. I couldn't believe this was happening again. How had he found me? I felt trapped, like a prisoner in my own life. The next day, I went to the police to report what had happened. They took my concerns seriously, but couldn't do much without solid evidence. I felt frustrated and helpless. The idea that I could be stalked so easily terrified me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing noises outside and imagined him lurking in the shadows. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I set up security cameras around my apartment and planned to stay vigilant. But as the days turned into weeks, I began to feel like a prisoner in my own home. I realized that no matter how far I ran, I could never truly escape the fear that haunted me. That's when I understood that the real horror wasn't just the man watching me. It was the feeling of being constantly on edge, never knowing when he might strike again. I learned that sometimes the darkness isn't just in the places we go, It can follow us, creeping into every corner of our lives. My name is Mark, and I'm a 27-year-old software developer living in Portland, Oregon. I've always enjoyed a quiet life, spending my days working and my nights unwinding with friends. But one night changed everything and left me haunted by the events that unfolded. It was a typical Friday night, and I had just settled into bed after a long week. I was half asleep, drifting in and out of consciousness when my phone buzzed beside me. I groggily reached for it, squinting at the bright screen. It was a snap from my good friend Ben. The image showed a dark outline of someone standing in a dimly lit room, their figure barely visible. My heart raced as I read the caption. Guess who? At first I thought it was a prank. Ben always loved to joke around, and this seemed like something he would do. I typed back quickly, haha, very funny. Looks like you got a ghost. But after hitting send, the silence felt heavy. Ben didn't respond, which was unusual for him. I shrugged it off, thinking he was probably just messing around or had fallen asleep. I put my phone down and drifted back into a restless sleep. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing again. This time, it was a news alert. I frowned as I stared at the headline, "Local man found dead in apartment." My stomach dropped as I read further. It was Ben. Authorities had discovered him in his home, and the report mentioned he had likely died around the same time I received that snap. Horrified, I scrambled to check my phone again. I opened Snapchat, hoping to find the snap still there. Maybe even a message explaining what happened. But it was gone. The message had vanished completely, leaving only an empty void where that chilling image had been. I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that washed over me. I couldn't believe what I was reading. How could Ben be dead? He was just here, sending me a creepy snap. I rushed to my laptop, searching for more information about what had happened. The news report confirmed my worst fears. Ben was found in his apartment, and there were strange circumstances surrounding his death. Hours passed, and I felt like I was in a daze. I couldn't focus on anything else. When the police finally released more details, it sent a shiver down my spine. They said his door had been locked from the outside. Whoever had been with him that night was still out there. I felt sick. My mind raced back to that snap. Had someone been in his apartment? Had they really been standing right there beside him when he sent it? The thought made my skin crawl. I remember how Ben had joked about feeling uneasy in his apartment lately, how he thought someone was watching him. I never took him seriously, but now I wished I had. The police came to interview me since I was one of the last people he had interacted with. I told them everything I knew, but I felt powerless. I couldn't help them. I had no answers. They searched his apartment for clues, and I waited outside, my heart pounding in my chest. When they finally finished, they approached me with grim expressions. "We'll do everything we can to find out who did this," one officer said, trying to reassure me. But I could see the concern in his eyes. "Just be careful. Whoever did this might not be far." That night, I locked every door and window in my apartment. I felt like I was being watched, like someone was lurking in the shadows, just waiting for the right moment. I couldn't shake the feeling that the person who sent that snap was still out there, and they might be coming for me next. Days turned into weeks, and the police investigation continued, but no leads surfaced. I couldn't escape the images of that dark figure, or the chilling thought that Ben's last moments had been spent in fear. The haunting memory of that snap haunted me. A constant reminder of how quickly life could change. I stopped using Snapchat altogether, convinced that it was somehow tied to Ben's death. I didn't want to take any chances. But even now, as I sit here writing this, I can't help but glance over my shoulder, wondering if someone is watching, waiting for another opportunity to strike. Sometimes, the scariest monsters are the ones that blend into the background, hiding in plain sight. My name is Zach, and I'm a 24-year-old graphic designer living in San Diego, California. I spend most of my days working in a small studio downtown, and like many people, I enjoy using Snapchat to stay connected with friends. But what began as a fun app quickly turned into a nightmare that left me feeling watched and vulnerable. One evening, while I was relaxing at home, I received a Snapchat message from an unfamiliar account. The username was just a long string of random numbers, nothing that made sense. I shrugged it off as spam and ignored it. But the next day, another message came through from the same account, again filled with numbers. I started to feel a little uneasy, but I didn't think much of it. This continued for days. Each time the account sent a new set of numbers, and each time I dismissed it. Finally, curiosity got the better of me. I decided to post the latest string of numbers on my Snapchat story, asking if anyone knew what they meant. I figured someone might recognize it. An hour later, I received a reply from my friend Derek. My heart sank as I read his message. "That's a GPS coordinate to your workplace." Panic surged through me. How did this random account know where I worked? I quickly pulled up Google Maps, entering the coordinates. Sure enough, it pointed directly to my office building. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The messages didn't stop there. Each day I received a new set of coordinates, and each one led to a location I had visited recently. My favorite coffee shop, the gym, even the park where I often jogged. It felt like someone was tracking my every move. I was terrified. Who was this person? And why were they doing this? I reported the situation to the police, but they seemed baffled. They took my statement seriously, but without any evidence or leads, they couldn't do much. They told me to be cautious and keep them updated if anything else happened. I left the station feeling helpless and scared. Desperate to regain some sense of control, I deleted Snapchat from my phone. I thought that would put an end to it, but the feeling of unease never went away. I started double-checking my surroundings everywhere I went, jumping at every little sound. I felt like a prisoner in my own life, constantly looking over my shoulder. Days turned into weeks, and I tried to go back to my normal routine. I avoided places I frequented, but the anxiety followed me everywhere. The fear of being tracked consumed my thoughts. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still out there, watching me. One night, while I was watching TV, I heard a noise outside my apartment. My heart raced as I crept to the window, peering through the blinds. I couldn't see anything, but the feeling of dread settled in my stomach. I grabbed my phone and called Derek, telling him everything that had happened. He urged me to stay alert and offered to come over, but I declined, not wanting to worry him. As I hung up, I saw a shadow move outside my window, and my heart dropped. I backed away slowly, trying to remain quiet. Was it just my imagination? I felt like I was living in a horror movie. The next morning, I decided to take a different route to work, avoiding the places I usually went. I hoped it would help ease my paranoia. But as I walked down a new street, I spotted a figure standing across the road, staring at me. My heart raced again. It was just a person, but something about the way they were looking at me sent chills down my spine. I quickly turned and walked the other way, my heart pounding. I felt the panic rising, and I knew I couldn't keep living like this. I decided to move to a new apartment in a different neighborhood, far away from everything that had happened. It felt like the only option left to regain my peace of mind. Even now, as I sit in my new place, I can't shake the feeling of being watched. I've tried to move on, but I know that someone once knew my every move. I learned the hard way that the internet can be a dark place, and sometimes the most innocent apps can turn into a portal of fear. I'll never forget those eerie coordinates or the stranger who tracked me down.